What's going to make you feel happy when you wake up in the morning? That's what you need to find. You know, don't dread life. Life is too short. Try to find that spot that you fit in.
All right, my friend, welcome back to the Zac Pitts Show, and I'm excited about today's episode because I don't know if I should say this or not. I don't know if it's going to embarrass. I mean, I grew up watching this guy, Dan Edwards.
We worked together.
For a split second, but I grew up watching you. Absolutely, and you were one of the. So on Channel 2, WDTN, and actually I ran teleprompter for you a few times, believe it or not. Yeah. But you know, I will always look at you as like the original morning news anchor of Channel 2 because that's who I grew up watching.
Wow. That's very nice of you to say, Zach. Thanks for having me on the show, man.
Absolutely.
You ought to see this tricked out studio, man. I'm just really happy for you and what you're doing and what you did and what you have done and what you are doing takes guts.
I appreciate that.
It really does. I mean, to throw yourself, to be, you know, to have the confidence in yourself to do what you're doing, I think is amazing. And I really admire you for that, and I'm impressed with what you're doing. So happy to be a part of this. Yeah,
no, this is really cool, and I've been excited about this since you said, yeah, I'll totally come on your show. You have your own show as well.
Yeah, I have a podcast. It's not, you know, kind of like this with the video and everything. I was in radio for 20 years, and I love that medium. And I missed that medium. And then, you know, kind of my radio and TV career kind of ran its career, basically. You know, you get to be a certain age with the hair and the pot belly and the price tag, you're out the door, right? And so I was kind of bemoaning the fact I was kind of missing. Well, you do that for 40 years, man. You're in people's lives, like, you know, you say very graciously, you grew up with me, and you get that. And then you don't have that voice in the community anymore. And my son said to me, he says, Dad, why don't you start a podcast? This is before podcasts were podcasts, you know.
Right.
Now everybody's like, what, 800 million podcasts, but it's all good. And, you know, you need to keep your voice in the community, Dad. And I thought, son of a gun. So I figured out all the techno, which you're doing as well. And I just enjoy having, it's called A Greater Dayton with Dan Edwards, available, you know, wherever you get your downloads. And it's about the unsung hometown heroes who inspire, entertain, and inform. And we got a bunch of them in this community. I never have a hard time finding somebody to interview. There's
never a shortage of great people to interview in Dayton. And just, you know, obviously with this podcast, you know, I wanted to reach the masses, you know, as many people as humanly possible. And I can hear it in your voice too, and that's what I, you know, as we were walking up the stairs to the studio, asked if you're originally from this area, and you said, you know, hop, skip, and jump away. But that's something that's always been important to me, is being this hometown kid, and really taking pride in where you're from. Why is that important? Why is that important for you?
Well, you know, before we sat down and started talking, you said, dude, what's the one thing that really is I love that your framing of this, the North Star of what you're about, and that to me. That's a very cool question because my North Star is Dayton. I'm like you. I love Dayton. And that's why I do that podcast, A Greater Dayton, you know, because we do have a great community. I mean, I came here in 82 when, you know, Dayton was a shithole. Sorry.
No, please. This is what here's the deal. And I mentioned this in a podcast before. You know why I like this medium?
Yeah.
Because you can be you. Yeah. You can be authentic. You can.
Yeah.
And as you know, as someone who worked in local television and even on radio, it's you're representing another brand. You're representing a whole other entity. With a podcast and any medium that you want in today's age, I mean, you can truly have the freedom to say what you want, be what you want, and because of that, people will follow you because they're like, oh, you don't have a filter on.
Exactly. You know, the filter is what you have to have on it. I think that's good for society. I mean, you can't, you know, go into a broadcast station, you get licensed by the FCC and say what you want, but on a podcast, you can say what you want, you know, and that's very cool. And I think that's why podcasts are so popular, because people have gotten tired of the staged entertainment that we have. You know what? It's not even entertainment anymore. Someone made this statement to me the other day, and I thought it really summed up what's happening in the entertainment world right now. And trust me, TV and radio is entertainment, right? They say it's news, but news is gone. It's a show, right? They called it angrytainment.
Interesting.
Angertainment. shows are now developed to get you mad at me and me mad at you, so clicks go up, right?
If it bleeds, it leads.
Exactly.
Yep.
That same moniker that we have been in TV for many years in news is now in mainstream society because, and I'm not busting people who do that. Everybody's trying to make a buck and trying to make a living, but we all know, facts show that negative stories, you spend more time on your phone watching and viewing a negative story than a positive story.
Oh, 100%.
And so as an advertiser, you want those people clicking, scanning longer and viewing longer and time spent and all that stuff. And that's why we have so much negativity. It's driven by commerce.
And it's so incredible to think of, too, because we are consumed with chaos. We are so obsessed with chaos. If anything that is wrong, or I just mentioned that if it bleeds, it leads, and that's what you'll see at the top of most newscasts. What was the story that was probably the most catastrophic? That's going to lead the newscast, and which is sad, but I understand. But I understand, and that's why when you mentioned your show is all about inspiring people,
right,
and motivating people. That's what I hope people get out of this show as well.
Dude, I tell you, I'll give you a quick example of what the power of a podcast. And I interviewed a young lady who. I usually don't deal with heavy things, but she was really inspiring to me. She was a yoga teacher. And she was kidnapped by her ex-husband, thrown into a cellar, and just locked down there for a time, tortured. And yet her yoga is what got her through that ordeal. She started breathing, and you have that fight or flight, like, holy crap, I'm going to die today mentality, right? And so she just had to lean into that yoga training that she had. The point of the story is that podcast aired, and within a week she had several people saying, man, I can relate to what you're saying. Thank you. I've gone through the same thing. Hopefully this will help me get through it. And that's why we love doing this stuff, Zach, because we can impact people, and hopefully in a good way.
And the thing is, you can ask the questions that they want to be asked.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's your job.
Yeah. And I love that too, because and we were talking about this before we started the show, that so many people have a difficult time talking about themselves unless they're asked. I used to do obviously Living Dayton, which was a lifestyle show, and so many people would be so scared about coming on TV for the first time.
Right.
What are you going to ask me? I'm like, we're just going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about all of those people that were freaked out about going on the show afterwards saying, wow, you made that so easy. I'm like, yeah, because we do this every day and we're just having a conversation.
Right. But before that, though, I think the point to make, though, Zach, is that people have to trust you.
Yes.
If they think you're going to dig them or zap them or shellac them on air, they get nervous. Hey, look, we're just having a conversation, and that's a credit to you and a tribute to you that you made them feel comfortable. You brought out that real person, and as a broadcaster or podcaster, that's what you do to get that person to make them feel comfortable to where they can share that great information with the rest of your audience.
Yeah. Where do you think media is going? As someone who worked in radio, worked professionally in local television, broadcast television, and today we're in this new age of media where everything's online and anything is accessible online. Where do you see media going with this new realm that we're jumping into? Yeah,
well, you have to find an audience, and I think people need inspiration, like you mentioned earlier. That's why my podcast, that's why I think people gravitate toward it. They just want to hear some good stuff. There's lots of bad stuff out there. For every bad story you hear, I'll give you 99 good stories. And that's where I think people want to go. They want to soft spot the land. They want a podcast host who because every time you say something, you're giving people little mosaics of who you are. Like when I was in radio, I would, you can't see me. You have no idea. Back when it was in the 80s and the 90s, before we had internet and all that stuff. But every day, you just give people a little piece of who you are. Not braggadocio or opinionated, but you just give people a little take on life, on a song, over a song intro, or just the way you talk about something, the way you talk it up. Then after a while, they get a feeling of who you are, because now they have this mosaic of all these little pieces that you've given them. And hopefully that's what we're doing now on the podcast, because what I like about what you're doing with your podcast is it's an avenue to reach those people who may not know how to voice their voice, They are uncomfortable doing that because you know the number one fear people have, public speaking, over dying.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry Seinfeld once quipped, that means, I'm not going to do the Jerry Seinfeld, that means you'd rather be the guy in the casket than the guy doing the eulogy. And so what you do is a huge service to people to share this, like, look, man, here's how we do this. And I'm a master certified body language expert, right? And so that's a whole nother level of how do I perceive myself with others and how are they perceiving me. And you talk about people kind of nervous about that because in body language, when you meet somebody for the first time, it's like you make up your mind about that person in the first tenth of a second. And so we have a pretty sophisticated machinery here called this human body given to us by God, right? And so what I like to do is just to help them share their story, tell their story, and be proud of it. And you do the same thing by training up people and getting them prepared.
How did you get into that line of work of being a body language expert? Because it's just something that you learn how to do when you work at TV and you're a reporter or an anchor or whatever. So it's second nature. So me trying to teach somebody, hey, your body language is telling me this. How did you get into that line of work? And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it all started, in radio and TV. Of course, we have consultants.
Yeah.
I call them insultants.
So, you know what? The one thing that, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I remember someone saying, like, listen to what the consultants say. You don't always have to do what the consultants say, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, you have to take what's good, what works for you. Right. I mean, they always say, be yourself, be yourself. Well, it seems like that was the last thing you wanted me to do, right? But to answer your story, your question real quick, I started in radio. And in radio, I believe you can hear body language in radio, in the voice, how the cadence, the rhythm, the words they use, the tone, all that, the projection, those type of things. And then I got into TV, and we had different consultants. I mean, the consultants that consulted Channel 2 at the time consulted Good Morning America. So we had some really good consultation going on. And so I started developing a body language curriculum then, because I would go do these press conferences, and I'd see Fortune 500 company executives up there on stage, and they were hurting their message by how clunky they were physically. I said, my God, here these people are, the pillars of their community, the tops of their field, and yet they do not know their body language is hurting their message. And so I created that curriculum. But in 2004, I said I wanted to start going after doctors, and their bedside manner was going to be kind of a specialty of mine. And so I got to get certified. So I went to the Body Language Institute of Washington, D.C., got my certification, and it was transformative. I'm telling you, Zach, I would do body language full time if I didn't have to live out of a suitcase all the time.
Yeah. What would you say the top 3 things that people struggle with their body language? And what would be the fixes for that? Yeah,
the first thing is just a self-image. You really need to, we live in such a video-demanding society now. Everybody's in front of the camera, one form or another. Just getting comfortable. Like people say, I don't like my voice. I don't sound like myself when I hear it back, right?
I can't stand my voice. You know what? I'll tell you where it came from real quick. I remember some girl when I was in college said my voice sounded like Michael Cera. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. What? And now here I'm sitting next to you, who has the radio voice, and I'm feeling very inadequate.
Hey, man, can we Gatorade to sponsor this?
We need to work on a sponsorship from Gatorade. There we go.
But back to your question. No, it's the self-image is huge, and so I wanted to make sure that we got this training into. I want to train the pillars of our community, because if I train them, then they can train their underlings, if you will. And it's all about communication. Because, Zach, this is all we do anymore, man. We talk with our thumbs, not everybody, but most. And so we got to do this, man. And the pandemic was an absolute paralyzing time for people. Some people loved it because they didn't have to leave the house. Other people like you and me who thrive on communication, thrive on connecting with people, it was a jail sentence for me, and I couldn't wait. I mean, I even adapted. I have 8 pods in my body language training. And the 9th, I had to add 4 virtual body language. People would forget that your body language goes with you on Zoom meetings, So I'm very thorough with from start to finish, basic body language to how you walk into a room full of strangers and read body language to see who your connectivity might be. Because body language for me, Zach, is in essence, is being able to efficiently and effectively share your message with as many people as possible.
Now, how do you serve up that curriculum? Is it an online course, or do you work in person in front of a seminar? What's that like?
Ideally, I like to do one-on-ones, but generally I do a group of people.
Okay.
12 to 15 people is max. Obviously, I like, because there is some personal stuff that you have to share with me to train you on. You have to, the first thing you have to have, what is your why?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do what you do? Oh, I want to make more money. Well, yeah, duh. We all want to make more money. But what is your why? What makes you get out of bed? What makes you do what you do beyond if you didn't get paid for it? Why do you exist? I mean, what are you about? And that's what you have to first and foremost realize is your why. What drives you? What's your motivator? And then everything circles around that why.
And I can almost guarantee when you're trying to figure out that why for that person, you have to dig. You have to dig. You have to dig, because
it's tough. It's tough.
We put on these layers.
Yeah, we do.
And when someone says money, like, they think that's the obvious answer. Oh, that's what Dan wants to hear.
Right.
Well, why do you want the money? Because I could, and like literally you're digging until the point where it's like, I just want to be free.
Right.
I just want to be me. You know
what my why is?
What is it?
My why is I desire to inspire others to see themselves and their world in a different way.
And that's a good why.
And so in that lies everything that I'm about. And it's why I'm doing this show for you. I want to inspire others to see themselves in a different way. Look at you, man. You're living your inspiration.
I'm trying.
I mean, the sweat may be running down the crack of your ass when the bills come, but that's life, man. Everybody has their issues. That's why I'm so proud of you, because you're doing it your way. And not everybody gets to do that. Not everybody gets to do it their way. And you just got to roll with the punches, man. You just got to go with it.
It's frightening. It is frightening.
So what's your why? What's your why?
I think what you said really stirred something up in me, because the thing that really helped me out when I was doing Living Dayton for a number of years, there was a period where I was struggling internally. I was a mess.
With what? Just nerves? Or?
Well, no. I had some personal things going on in my life. Relationship, and then a lot of things from thinking about early in my childhood. A lot of inadequacy. So, I was thinking to myself, here I am, this guy, Mr. Dayton, on this Living Dayton show, and it was my dream job. I wanted it. When I was an intern, I said, I'm going to host that one day.
You're good at it, man.
And I appreciate that. But here I had all these inadequacies and fears, and was constantly judging myself. And I'm just thinking, like, who am I to be hosting this show to where I'm Mr. Picture Perfect Dayton? And I remember, because when I first started that show, I was still young. I was in my mid-20s. I was a reporter for a number of years. And I remember the boss at the time, the creative service director at the time, said something along the lines of, like, you need to act more like you're in your mid-30s, house with a 2-car garage, yada, yada. And so I felt like I was faking it every day because I wasn't that person in my personal life. I didn't have the house with a 2-car garage. I wasn't making the money that could afford that. And I just kept thinking about, the way that I grew up. So who am I to come on here Monday through Friday for an hour, be Mr. Picture Perfect? And I felt like an actor. I felt like a fake. And so internally, I was just a mess. Like, it got to the point, Dan, where I was having panic attacks on live TV.
Wow.
It got that bad.
Wow, I did not know that, Zach. I'm sorry.
No. But what helped me get through that, after just, accepting some things that were happening in my life and just coming to terms with that, was what I said earlier. What kept me going was making you feel better. The guest saying you made that so easy. So they had the opportunity to talk about the thing that they were passionate about, their business, their organization they were involved with, and they were able to communicate that out into, for the audience. And my role was just pulling the best versions of themselves out so they could get that across.
So your why is basically my why.
So in a roundabout way, I took a little longer to get there, and I apologize, but I think that's what it is. And, I think that we'll do more for other people than we'll do for ourselves.
Absolutely, man. You feel so much better doing it that's why I used to charge a stupid amount of money for my podcast. And I got to a point where it felt icky. I said, why am I? I feel better now about my podcast. I don't make a dime off of it. I go out with my little laptop and my microphone, and we set it up. And we have a great time and talk. I mean, I had some fabulous conversations about people who mean something to this community. And I would have never been able to do that without that little microphone to kind of give me a reason to bring that out of them. And I hope that, and I know with the story that I shared, I know that it impacts people. Who knows what this podcast or telecast or telepodcast or whatever this is called.
Yeah. but it's exciting because it's uncharted territory. It's uncharted waters.
Yeah.
And it's so accessible. People can do it. And not a lot of people know how to do it.
Well, you got to have the bank too. I mean, this stuff's not cheap.
Well, I'm very fortunate that I was able to save a little bit of money. I got a freelance job right before I quit, and which helped me pay for it. But I'm not gonna lie, it's like as you said, you said something about sweating ass crack or something.
Like, you're not living until you feel the sweat running down the
I'm gonna have to.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna coin that one. I'm gonna put that one in my back pocket and use it at some point.
But that's good though, man. You're not living until you push yourself. I mean, that's why I kind of my career in broadcasting kind of came to an end in 2000 around 2000. Yeah, when was the pandemic? Good Lord, 2020, right?
Yeah.
God, it just seems like that was 100 years ago.
It feels like it, doesn't it?
But anyway, I had to do what you did, man. I said, I am tired of being under people's thumbs. It was one of my goals I had in my life. I'd already become the #1 DJ in town. Check. We had the #1 morning show at Channel 2 for a while. Check. Now I said, now it's time for my next challenge. God, what is it? Well, he told me.
You're blowing my mind right now. Like, that's literally the way I've described it. Like, living Dayton, check. Morning news anchor, check. This is the next check. So
that's it, man. So that's why I called my company Pivotal Media, because I had to pivot. That was the word, right? We've got to pivot, right? And so I said, man, this is perfect time. And we had a great time, but I had another opportunity now working for Mike Foley in the clerk of court's office here in Montgomery County, Ohio. I don't know where the people are watching this or viewing this or listening to this, but it's been a fantastic job. And again, the same skill sets that I've had all my life, connecting with people and telling great stories with video. That's all my job is. I mean, we have so many back to Dayton and how good it is. Montgomery County, the region, fantastic place, man. We have so many good people working for this community. It's amazing. That's
awesome. What would you tell anybody that is sitting on the sidelines of their life right now?
Well, we all have our own comfort levels. Certainly many people that we're talking to now don't have, the same backgrounds that we have had. All I can say is that find your why and go from there. What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? I have become who I envisioned 40 years ago.
How do you go about doing that? And that's something that I've been very, very fascinated with over the last several years, is because as a kid, you have an imagination. You have this wild imagination. 10-year-old Zac Pitts saw everything that he was going to be. I remember, again, when I was an intern, I knew that I was going to host Living Dayton. I knew when I was watching you, one day I'm going to sit in Dan's seat, and it happened. Yep. And around the pandemic, and as I've gotten older, I have found that it is much more difficult to imagine, and because the world conditions you to struggle. Like, right, you're surrounded by that negativity, that bad news. Sometimes it's hard to see that clear outcome, that vision that you once had. Yeah. So how have you over the years been able to navigate that? Because you have a few years on me, but
I'll be 65 this year, man.
65.
Let's be real, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but you're living your best life right now,
and
I'm excited to hear you say that, and
I give you hope. I hope
there is so much hope now. But so, what's been your method of doing that?
You gotta trust your gut. You get too many consultants in your life. You know what I mean?
Ooh, yeah.
You get too many consultants. Everybody wants to tell you what you should be. It's like everybody wants to tell you who you should be. And okay, they're much smarter than I. They've got their masters. They must know what they're. No, you're the expert author of your life. If that's not the chapter you want to write, don't write it. Even if you have to take a bit of a pay cut to do something that we make a whole lot of money in radio and TV.
Nope.
Not as much as the work we put into it. I mean, you got to be real, and I know a lot of people are like that. They're not making what they should, but if you can make a fair dime on it, be realistic, Be realistic what your tool sets are. Get your, if you want to go into a space, learn about it first. Talk to people. Do your research on what, and don't tell me you can't. We can research anything nowadays, man, right or wrong. But for me, the best thing to do is walk in their shoes for a while. Mentor is a key word. I mean, I guess we're talking to some of the younger folks in the audience, but mentoring is a great opportunity because you get to try on that job before you really fully buy the suit. And that's what I like about it, because sometimes you go into it and it's, this is not at all what I thought it would be, good or bad. Sometimes you can, wow, this is a much better gig than I thought it would, So you never know. Try it out. Drive the car for a while. Kick the tires before you buy the car, right? Same thing with your life, but just follow your heart. What do you want to do? Where do you want to? I'm not big on setting goals. I pretty much know where I want to go. Some people, they have to write it up and all that. Whatever works for you. I don't care. I just knew where I wanted to be. And I took the steps that I had to take. Would that require me to take 3 or 4 jobs to have a family of 2 in Oakwood, Ohio? That's what I did. I didn't bitch about it. I just did it. But I loved what I did. That was the gig, man. I loved entertaining people at parties as a mobile DJ. I loved training people as a master certified body language expert. I love telling great stories of Montgomery County through my job with Mike Foley in the clerk of court's office. I mean, we have such an opportunity, Zach, to impact lives in a positive way, and that's where your future should be. And you asked about where TV and media is going. More people are going to gravitate towards this, man, because the world is getting to be a funky place, man. The psyche of our America is just freaked out right now about things I've seen that I never thought I would see in 100 years. Mm-hmm. We're seeing this stuff, man. It's like, whoa, we don't have any concretes anymore. So life is short. You got to go after that. Do what you want to do. Try to make some money at it, but follow your heart. Follow your gut.
I love it. And I typically ask everybody that comes on this show, because I want everybody that's either listening or watching to really say, man, that was so worth my time to listen to that episode. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate you again being a part of this. For whoever's listening or watching, what's the one thing you want them to take with you for the rest of today, the rest of the week, the rest of the month, the rest of the year, the rest of their life?
That's a great question, because on my podcast, A Greater Dayton, my final question, all my guests is, how do we all make it a greater Dayton? And I would say that to anybody watching or listening right now is like, for you to, what's going to make you feel happy when you wake up in the morning? That's what you need to find. Don't dread life. Life is too short. Try to find that spot that you fit in. And again, if money is driving you, you're probably always going to be unhappy because you never make enough money. But if you have a job where, okay, I'm paying my bills, all right, saving a little money, it's tough to do that now. I don't care who you are. It's tough to save money right now. Don't beat yourself up. Don't punch down on yourself. It's a tough time right now. Life is cyclical. Things will come back around. Give it time. But you've got to prepare yourself for where you want to be when that tide comes back in and raises all those boats.
I love it.
It's coming, man.
My final question for people that heard you mentioning about being the body language expert and said, maybe I need to reach out to Dan. What's the easiest way they can do that? Well,
just my website, djedwardsgroup.com. It's kind of my umbrella company that I have with my, I kind of stopped doing the mobile DJ work, to be quite honest with you, man. I am not big into music anymore.
Who's your favorite artist of all time?
Oh, Lord, you can't ask that question. You cannot. There is no good answer.
You have one more week left, and you get a concert ticket to anybody right now, dead or alive. Go.
God, jeez, that's. I don't mean to fluff this, but I really have so many favorite artists. Like, in radio, we got to go to so many great concerts and so many great experience with. And it wasn't so much the concert, but of the people that we got to go with. We take busloads of fans to these concerts. Had such a great time. But one of my favorites are the Eagles. I mean, I love the Eagles.
I've seen the Eagles before.
Pink Floyd.
Yep.
I didn't see the Eagles live.
Oh, you didn't?
Did not see them live.
I saw.
Here's why. I just didn't want to pay the price.
Yeah.
I'm a cheap bastard.
I saw when Deacon Fry was playing with them. So it was
That had
really
to be
neat.
fun.
And that's kind of a cool experience. I don't think he's doing it anymore. I think Don Henley, he might be a little bit of a jerk. I'm like, all right, you're done.
Yeah.
I can see it.
That's why I had a problem with the Eagles. I mean, all the time they bitched about the man and charging all the money, but then what did they do when they got old? They became the man.
They
and started
became the
charging
man.
money. Okay. But no, it's just music. I love all kinds of music, man. Depends on my mood, I guess I'd have to give you an answer.
There you go. Depending on the day of the week, whatever flavor of the week. But I can't thank you enough, Dan. And of course, we're going to have all the details about the body language expert, your website, down in the show notes, as well as below this video, wherever you're watching this.
Follow this young man. I'm telling you, he's got something to say. And I appreciate what you're doing, Zach, and I wish you the best of luck.
I appreciate it,
Thank
Dan.
you.
Don't worry.
What a rookie.
Thanks, Dan. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I really hope that you enjoyed the music that was underneath some of the segments in the show. And to be completely honest with you, as I was building things out, I didn't want to go through the whole mess of trying to find a bunch of royalty-free music so I could use it in the show. So I went ahead and I just used the instrumental tracks for my debut album, Midwest Romance, and I want to give you a signed copy of my album for absolutely free. All you have to do is help me cover the shipping and handling. Now, I totally get it. You can listen to the album on Spotify or Apple Music, any other streaming platform. But again, if you get the signed copy of the album, it's also going to come with some free goodies as well that you cannot get anywhere else. Again, a signed copy of my debut album, Midwest Romance. If you just help me cover the shipping, I will go ahead and send it right to you. Once again, thank you so much for watching this week's episode. Hope to see you next week right here on the Zac Pitts Show.